The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, and he got fat, bald, and tired.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware, your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. I'm here with a man whose first name is Roel. Roel?
Hi there.
Hi, Roel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
What a beautiful dog picture. And I'm sure the
Yeah.
dog is beautiful, too. Is that your dog?
It was our dog, but it's a great memory of my dog. It sucks to start off with such a sad story, but
Well, it indeed me to you immediately, Roel. Originally, someone whose first name might be Kitty. I never know these days if they're pseudonyms or real names.
no, it's actually our real name.
Really? Good for Kitty. Kitty of RageSquid, your company, was going to be on the show. But now you're on, and I'm happy about that, personally. Look at your... Is that a skateboard?
Yeah, that's a skateboard as well.
Ah. And what's that map of? Where are we? Is that a map of your town?
It's a map of the Netherlands.
Oh, and you're a Netherlandan.
I'm a Netherlandan.
Your English is astounding. How do I pronounce your last name? People should know.
Yeah, Ezendam is how you say it.
That'll never happen.
No, forget it. Don't even try. Well, you can try it, though.
Thank you for helping me, Roel. So you're of RageSquid Games. Your latest game is Action Henk. It's the kind of game that I expected everyone to be talking about. When I first saw it, I was shocked by how expensive it looks, given the fact that it's clearly made by a smaller company, and how inherently silly and funny it is, while the gameplay mechanics being tight and responsive and exciting, using a limited tool set to do a lot of big things. Action Henk, was that your idea? Who made the Action Henk?
So to start off, you explain it really well. I don't even have to explain it. You just it's perfect.
It's kind of
so basically, within the company, it's three founders. I'm one of the founders, and my expertise or my job within the company is gameplay, game design, and sort of game code. So I'm a programmer by nature, but I also take care of the design usually.
Huh.
And I sort of wanted to do a platformer game, and I wanted to do a sort of physics-based speedrunning platformer game, which is also probably because I've been doing a lot of skateboarding in my life. It's been sort of like my art lead once said it seems to me that you're always just making skateboard games, but you're just sort of wrapping them up in different. Once we made a vehicle game, but that was with stunts and half pipes, and now it's Action Henk, and that's also it's basically a skateboarding game, but you're running around as this sort of overweight action figure in a midlife crisis, basically. So the sort of the gameplay design that was my part, and I came up with the whole thing with the curves and the physics, and then I basically went to the art lead, or we went to the art lead and said, okay, we're gonna do this. You can put something on top, just put some art style on top that you like. Obviously, we have to agree on all of it, but we sort of divided the tasks like that. So yeah, and he's really into he loves to do realistic art, not cartoony stuff, but realistic 3D. But we also like to do colorful and vibrant, happy stuff. So that's how we kind of ended up with the whole toy theme, because it's realistic yet colorful, and so yeah, that's kind of how it went, and we didn't want to have this sort of generic action figure, so the GI. If you look at the GI Joes, for example, or the Action Man that's in the Netherlands, they're all really it's the most generic action figure there could be, and we thought it would be nice if there would be some kind of character to the action figure, or the action figures that are going to be in the game, to sort of be it doesn't matter if you have flaws, or if you're if you're in your midlife crisis, or you kind of let yourself go. Doesn't matter. It's about character and about not sort of.
Sure, so much in there. First of all, I agree 100% that going with realistic graphics, but wanting them to be expressive and exciting, and you're using polygon models, to try to replicate something in real life that is an exaggeration of real life already, like toys, always works better, in my opinion. Like Little Big Planet was definitely one of the best looking games, in my opinion, of last console generation, because it didn't shoot for higher than graphics could go at the time. So, but the game still looks awfully expensive for a relatively small team. Is that just
I love
because
the way you put that.
well, people, the facts are facts, I guess. I think that the predominant opinion is if you see a game that's got 2D pixel art, it's just not that that wasn't hard to make, but it's usually not as expensive and time-consuming to make a bunch of expensive-looking 3D models. At least they look expensive to me. I keep repeating myself on that. So yeah, was it expensive to make, or are you guys just really good at what you do, or both?
So it's kind of funny because so on one hand the whole 3D environment is definitely a way for us to differentiate from other sort of small studios. It's because not everyone does the 3D stuff. On the other hand, it's kind of like we didn't really have a choice because we can only do 3D, so we kind of had to. So it was like, okay, we have to do 3D because that's all we can do. But it's also quite nice because most people don't do 3D, so it's a good sort of thing. So that's kind of how that went. It's just our expertise, and it's because we met each other in sort of the same game development school, and that school really focused on high quality, sort of like AAA industry. Like you want to work on the next Call of Duty, okay, these are the things you need to learn. So so because of that, all our backgrounds are pretty sort of technical, like pretty just trying to get to that sort of AAA standard. And that's why, for example, we can only do 3D. So yeah, that's why we ended up doing a 3D game.
Well, to only be able to do things that could potentially make you look like you're a AAA studio, even though you're more or less just 3 guys, or is it a larger?
Well, there's a lot of people involved because obviously, so you met Kitty. She's like an external person. She does the marketing and PR for us, and we have a bunch of friends that are involved as well. And it's all friends we knew from school, and they all have a certain expertise. So we have one guy who's really good at animation, and he said he wanted to help us out. So we got a couple of these friends that help us out. So in total, I think there's 13 people involved in the game. So that's quite a lot. But if you would sort of add all the hours together, and it would be I think 6 people full time, 5 to 6 people full time. But it's just like a lot of friends doing small stuff.
Huh, interesting. And that's, so it sounds like a little bit of the do-it-yourself indie, hope and a prayer, mixed with a little bit of company structure as well. But if you're a game designer by design, was that difficult? I keep repeating the same words over and over. It's funny, game designer by design, how redundant. This managing of a company, is that something that came naturally to you, or did you just want to make video games?
I think there's always 2 sides to it because we all 3 of us, we definitely had the ambition that we wanted to sort of run our own company and like really do our own thing. And there's got to be other stuff, apart from just making games. There's going to be more stuff. That in advance. You have to sort of realize that, because else it's going to be you have to do so much more if you want to also sell your game. So that was really a new thing for us, and especially because we've been making a lot of games, and especially game jams, smaller projects, little 48-hour projects. We've been making games for a long time, but especially Action Hang, that was the first time we're doing, like, really selling our own game as well, and the first sort of big commercial release. So we knew there was going to be a lot of other stuff, but obviously we could have never anticipated how much work that actually was. And I mean, it's so it's a pretty big chunk of work, is what we found out. But it's been a lot of fun as well, because I mean, we enjoy doing that as well. It's just something we have to learn also. And if you look at the team, and if you look at like managing the company, and I mean, you start off with this like, we don't need who needs planning, whatever. We just work until it looks awesome, and then eventually you find out that we might need to have some kind of structure somewhere. So it's just a slow learning process, and it's with all these youngsters, and everyone wants to be rebel and do it their own way, but it's a slow learning process. We get there eventually, I guess.
Sure. Well, in some people's opinion, I mean, game on Steam, game looks beautiful, game is being talked about. You have gotten there, but it's great that you want to be even more ambitious and reach greater heights with the next game. To back a little bit, though, you met the other people at RageSquid in college. How long ago was that, and what college was it?
So that was a college in the Netherlands, in Breda, which is in the south of the Netherlands. It's called the NHTV, and it's a game development education. And like I said, it's a pretty technical education. There's a couple of there's a lot of game education schools in the Netherlands, but not all of them are really serious or really good. Sometimes it's sort of like a little extra trajectory, extra thing. There's a couple of like really solid game schools and game development schools, and some of them are more like an art school, so they're more like sort of experimental and trying to find your own way and doing your more like giving you your own space to explore your capabilities and stuff like that. And then the school where I was at was more technical. Like I said, if you want to work in AAA, these are the skills you need to have, and we only have 4 years to teach you, which is actually not enough, but we're gonna try anyway. And so it's from day one. It's just it's really hardcore. It's a really hardcore education, and a lot of people drop out, but you can see that the people that finish it are up to pretty high standards. It's just like I said, it's just a really technical education. So
Right.
so that's how I basically met all my friends, and somehow everyone sort of has a different interest or different expertise, and especially within the if you go more to AAA industries, it's expected of people to be more specialized in one thing rather than being this all-round sort of person. So because of that, a lot of our friends are really good at a certain specific thing. And if you take, for example, like rigging a character in 3D, it's just preparing your character to be animated. It's a pretty technical job, and it can take a long time, and it's really hard to do properly. And now there's this friend of ours, and he helps us out with it, and we just send him the character, and half an hour later, he's just like, oh yeah, no, here's it's done. And we would use Havoc for the physics, and we would use these sort of compile. We put together our own little game engine, but basically throughout the school, the focus is really on technical programming and how to do all aspects of programming within the industry. So I've learned to do my own physics engine, my own audio engine, my own rendering engine, all the sort of behind the scenes networking stuff. So it's pretty it goes really deep, really technical for a short period, so you can sort of see everything, how it works, and then you have to sort of decide yourself what kind of thing you want to specialize in, which was a bit hard for me because I really like to do gameplay, which is something we didn't really. We would have to make games, obviously, in school, but it was usually more about the whole technical, the programming aspect, not so much the design. So for me,
Was there an alternate track that would have just been on like game feel and game mechanics as metaphor for human experience and blah blah blah?
There is this sort of design track, but when I was in school there were only 2 tracks. Now there are 4 tracks, so they sort of expanded on that. But when I was there was just artists and programmers, and I am really a gameplay programmer, not so much. I mean, I like doing the technical stuff from time to time, but what I enjoy doing most is just coming up with gameplay and building the gameplay. So to me, I was always rushing the assignments because we would have to make our own 3D engine and then make a game in it. And then I would rush through all the requirements for the 3D engine, and then it was like, oh, I could spend all the other time I had on actually making a fun game. So in the end, I managed to sort of get my gameplay programming skills from there as well. But it was not necessarily an education focused on that aspect, and that's just something I tried specializing in over the course of it sort of went naturally. But,
Sure.
and that's kind of how it goes. Like people, you sort of choose a direction, you learn all kinds of stuff, and I notice now how valuable the information is. Because even if you work with an engine like Unity, like you work with a game engine that's already complete, it's really helpful to know what's going on behind the scenes. If you know how it's built from the ground up, it's way easier to control it yourself. So that's been a tremendous help so far. And I guess that's, I mean, all the people from that school are just pretty technical.
Yeah, it's such an important part that so many people who look to making games as an escape from all their stress, so many game developers I've met saying I have a terrible life, stressful job, or just, I love video games because it feels good, and then making them makes you feel like you're a part of making something that feels good and also feels like playing a game itself to have to solve all the little problems that go along with making a game. But the technical stuff, the unfun stuff, when you're just doing it on your own, it's so easy to put that off or shy away from it. And you really had 4 years of, sounds like pretty grueling experience with that. And to be able to make your own engine, I don't know if you know how it sounds. I was just talking to some very talented game developers, and they more or less told me that making your own engine is like basically trying to make a world. And like, you gotta make sure every little aspect of it works perfectly, or else, the entire species is gonna die out on your planet. And they said, never make your own engine. Just don't do it. Just don't. Never make your own engine. If you ever want.
I would actually agree with them, because I mean, I've been using Unity now for a couple of years, and ever since I started using that, I was like, because I was used to having to make every little thing myself. When we were using Unity for the first time, we were just like, oh wow, the audio is already working, and there's just physics. I just click one button and it has physics, and so our minds were just completely blown. And especially, like I said, because I love to do gameplay rather than doing the engine, using Unity has been great for us. And ever since we first touched it, we never else, because it's so much more fun for us if we can just build the game and not the whole engine around it. And some people love doing that, but not us.
I know people who feel compelled to do it. I'm trying to, because I know a fair amount of game developers. I'm trying to think of someone who says, I just love making engines.
Yeah, well, actually, our neighbors from Abbey Games. You know Abbey Games?
I'm not sure that I do.
They made Reus, and they're now working on Renowned Explorers. Maybe you've heard of it. I
haven't heard of Renowned Explorers. Not the first one, though. Reus?
Yeah, Reus. I don't know how it's also one of those hard to pronounce Dutch words, so I don't know how to say it properly. But they have a couple of. They actually invest in their own engine. Like, they want to make their own engine. And they have some people who actually enjoy doing that, which is, to me, like, I don't see how, but they love doing it, so yeah.
Huh, that's awesome. And Unity, such a good decision because it's so portable. I think you can port it to every major console except 3DS as well. And 3DS will, in a couple of years, surely be replaced with something that hopefully will be Unity compatible. So very smart. But I heard that they might be bought. Did you hear that?
I saw the rumors. Yeah.
That's pretty terrifying. Almost every developer I know, whether they use Unity or not, was like, please don't let this happen. Though I suppose somebody could just fill the gap and create a new Unity if the current Unity gets eaten up, but then you'd have to learn a whole new language. That's not something you would want to do, would you? There'd be a lot of money in that, I guess, making the new Unity.
Well, okay, so that's basically been my approach as well to this whole sort of, all these just rumors, so I have no clue what's going to happen in the end. But I've been, relatively mild to the whole thing, because, I know that, I already know that just, from history, that there's not going to be one thing that lasts forever. So it's just a matter of time before somehow something new pops up, and it can be soon, it can be within a year, or it can be within 10 years, but eventually that's just how things go. So that, and if the time comes, then yeah, sure, we'll go with it. And that's again one of those things, because we learned all the sort of the really technical deep down stuff. For us it's not too hard to switch to a new platform, because we kind of like, because there's always sort of a similar core to game engines, and there's always things that they, do, and it's a different flavor, it's a different thing, but in the end, it's all sort of the same. They have the same approach. So,
like Dutch and Danish, kind of, because Dutch is similar to Danish, I think. Danish is a language, right? It's not just.
It's more similar to German. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you hear people talk Dutch and you don't know, you're gonna be, is it German or that's just sort of there. But Danish is also quite similar, I believe. Yeah.
Huh. Good to know.
So,
My American ignorance was showing pretty hard there, wasn't it? Son of a
well,
gun.
that's okay. I couldn't name like a lot of states anyway, so.
Me neither, Roel. I know like 5. Mississippi, is that a river or a state? I don't know. When did you get started in programming? Were you just a kid, or were you not,
Yeah.
you didn't get in? Yeah, when you were younger.
Yeah, I was interested in all this technical stuff from quite a young age. I remember like asking my dad like how does a website work? Like I'm asking him how does this work, and then he would get me a book on how to build your own website and stuff like that. So and then I sort of got into Flash, more for the animations. And then I found you can also program in Flash, and then there were sort of little example games, and I would change the graphics myself and just play around with code. And then I was like, oh, there's all this programming stuff and like cosines and all this fancy maths, and it would be really scary. But that's sort of how I got into it. And then over the years, it kind of grew. Like I started doing sort of modding for games, making levels for games. But I was always more on the sort of technical side. I always liked to do a bit with scripting as well. So I was never that sort of really hardcore into programming, but I was always into, yeah, sort of game design, but more in a technical way. So that's kind of what I ended up doing now as well. I mean, I do programming, but I make a gameplay experience. So it's sort of programming and psychology combined, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Steve Swink, he's one of the developers who was telling me never make your own game engine. He wrote a book, I believe, on that very thing, programming and game mechanics combined to make something called Game Feel. I can't remember the name of the book. It might just be called Game Feel. It's pretty neat. Yeah, he's a cool guy. I think you two would, I already get the sense you two would get along very well. So was it, did you want to do games for certain at first, or were you thinking I would code something else, or was it games that was always your target?
So well, this is it was a funny moment because I was always into computers, and I was already sort of like I want to do something technical. That's just what my passion is about. And then I would do. Do you remember a game called Wolfenstein Enemy Territory?
I remember Wolfenstein. I didn't. The Enemy Territory.
It's sort of like a standalone free game or something. I would make maps for that kind of stuff, and I was all like in the community on the forums of the Splash Damage, the developers. And then one day it struck to me. I was like, whoa, you can actually like there's people who do this as a job, like they make money doing this, and it sort of clicked in my head like you can actually do this as your profession. So and then I met up with someone who was doing this education that I was telling you about, and I sort of like I went with him for a day. I was like, can you show me around? Can you show me how the whole education goes? And I went there and I saw all these crazy things and all these people learn to make games like actually as a profession, and I was just like flabbergasted the whole day. And then after that point, it was quite clear that I was going to do something with games. But up until that point, I never realized like, oh, you can actually turn this into a job.
How old were you then when that epiphany happened?
I think it was
school.
16, 17, something around that. So I was in my secondary school, and I was sort of like finishing up secondary school, and I was looking what I wanted to go do to college, I guess. Yeah,
Sure.
Probably. So
how long ago was that? How old are you now?
So I'm 24 now, and I think I went to school about 7 years ago. I went to the game education, and I graduated a good 2 years ago. So and in between that, I've been sort of doing freelance work, and I already knew that I didn't really want to settle down and work for a company, and I kind of had the ambition to do my own company. And the other guys from RageSquid, we already know each other for a long time, but it was just not the right time yet. Like there would be no finance, or just no time, or people would still be focused studying. And then after a while, we sort of like had this moment like, okay, this looks like a good moment. I think we can just get together now. We rent an office, and then let's just go. So that's what we did, and that was a good year ago, I think, year and a half maybe.
Wow, that's still so young. I'm getting to talk to Roel of RageSquid at like the birth of his company, kind of. In 20 years, they'll be looking this up and being like, "What was Roel like as a young man?" And starting his RageSquid for the first time. That'll be fun for me to be known for that. Was this always the kind of game you wanted to make, or were there games specifically that influenced you growing up that you wanted to make games like that you haven't had the opportunity to make yet?
So my passion has always been sort of motion and physics, and I notice now that that's basically what all our games are about. It's all about having a certain motion that's just really feels really great, and it doesn't have to be really complex. It should be simple. However, there should be a certain depth to it. So that's also the games I always love playing. The games sort of start you out with everything you can do, and then it's up to you to actually master the whole controls. And I think another thing, just having done so much skateboarding, I'm pretty sure it's been a big influence as well, definitely. And also, but also I guess the reason I skateboard is also sort of because of games. Like everybody has played Tony Hawk, and I'm absolutely that. When I was playing Tony Hawk, it really pushed me to be like, oh yeah, I want to do skateboarding too. So I basically started skateboarding because of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and now I'm just making all kinds of skateboard games because I skateboarded all the time. So it's sort of like, I guess Tony Hawk he's the man that sort of made it all happen.
It's
all his fault. It's all his fault.
well, hopefully you'll get to make a game with him someday if he's still kicking around.
That would be insane. I
wonder, do you know any of the guys from Roll 7 who made Ollie Ollie?
Oh, yeah, I got in touch with them. They're super chill guys. And also recently they announced the new one, like Ollie Ollie 2.
Yeah.
I was at EGX, and I was walking around. I was just wandering around. And then I saw these banners that said Ollie Ollie 2, and I'm like, what? Is that a thing? I don't know. And then I met them over there. So that was really cool, yeah.
That's great. I would love to see an Ollie Ollie Action Henk crossover. What do you think? Is it possible?
Who knows?
Is it a good idea?
Action Henk skateboarding maybe one day.
I'm sure. I don't know
rumors
enough to speak to this. Yeah, I don't want to start rumors, but they are pretty similar games in a lot of ways. Though Action Henk being much more, in my opinion, explosive and intense. Ollie Ollie feels like math. Whereas Action Henk often feels like a mathematically sound explosion, and like, whoa, what that just happened? And for people who haven't played it, hopefully they're gonna check out a video of it. You're a overweight, mutton chopped, smiling plastic man, and you are sort of like Toy Story in a world of other toys, Rubik's Cube, stuff like that. But it's a non-stop dash where kind of anything can happen. It feels roller coaster-ish mixed with platformer, plus tons of surprises that you wouldn't see coming. Pretty robust too. It's not a short game either. At least it's not too short, is it?
No, well, it can sometimes seem short because it's short levels, but a lot of the fun is also in just getting better sort of medals at the levels and sort of beating your friends and all kinds of stuff, so sort of perfecting these times. So if you play all the levels just once, yeah, it's going to be a pretty short game, but that's not the point. The point is about playing levels over and over again and sort of perfecting your run and really diving into the intricate tricks of the physics. And when you get back to a level you were struggling with earlier, all of a sudden you find out that you're just like seconds faster all of a sudden. That's what the fun is about in my opinion.
That's what Sonic the Hedgehog, what I always want Sonic the Hedgehog to be. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it just feels like I'm holding right, and then I hit a wall, and then I go over the wall, and then I keep going. The punishments aren't harsh enough that I replay the level to try to do better, and the punishments also sometimes feel a little bit unfair in that series, so I don't feel like it's an interesting challenge to try to figure out how to overcome them. I'm just like, eh. But Action Henk, I feel like you've done a great job with that brand of design. Would you ever want to make a Sonic the Hedgehog game just for the heck of it?
Well, just imagine if they would contact us and say, hey man, do you want to make a Sonic game? I mean, who would I be to say no to that? I would obviously do that. That would be so cool. But I think that's one of the coolest compliments, because it's really something we hear quite often, actually, that people say, like they use that exact sentence that you also use, like, It's
I'm
like
not
Action Hank.
plagiarizing, right? Yeah.
No, they now sort of like they use the sense like Action Hank is what Sonic should have been, and that's I mean that's just really cool if people say that, because it's also funny because Sonic was never really the inspiration. It's more like Trials, Trackmania, Super Meat Boy. That's sort of the main inspiration. And obviously we played Sonic, you know, back in the days as well, but it was never the thing. So, but it's been one of the most sort of, when people talk about what it looks like, Sonic is usually one of the first things that come to mind. But that was not necessarily intended.
Sure. And how has the reception to the game been? Sadly, you know, a lot of people I know have taken to it, but I've also shown it to other people, and nobody said anything bad, but some of them say, well, I don't understand, is it like a 3D? Because the cutscene and the trailer makes it look like it might be a 3D platformer, and the graphics look expensive, so people associate that with, you know, a game where you move in and out of space, and then the gameplay happens and it's 2D. It's left some people a little confused. Has that been an issue, or do you feel like people are more or less get it right off the bat?
Well, I guess that could definitely be an issue. The thing is, with Action Egg, I think the strongest thing with Action Egg is if you play it, even if it's just 10 seconds, or, okay, you have to just slide once. If you do one slide, you understand the game. So that's a bit of a tricky thing, because obviously you cannot, you know, people have to buy it before they can play it. So that's like one of the tricky things, that one of the strongest things about Action Egg is just the way it feels, and there's no way to communicate how it feels in a video. So, and then also, some people have been saying like, oh, is it like an endless runner, or is it but that's just I guess just some feedback for us to see how we can, you know, explain the game in the trailer as well as possible, because some people just don't really get it. But I guess that's also hard as a developer, because you know, you see your own game every single day, every minute you think about it, so it becomes so natural that some of these things might not be natural to someone who hasn't seen it before.
Sure, being able to see it with fresh eyes, that's always one of the biggest challenges, and to me, most painful thing when you're trying to make something, because you are getting this feeling from it, and you want other people to have it, and then you show it to someone with fresh eyes, and they're like, it's happened to me, I can't even count how many times. And it's a tough thing, too. You bring up endless runners, and there's this huge endless right now. So much of it has to do with what's going on with people who pay attention to games, but maybe aren't like hyper-focused on figuring out what every game is. My cat just showed up.
Hey, we have a visitor.
What are you doing here, cat? So endless runner stigma. Also, like, pixelated graphics stigma. People are so sick of, like, retro graphics, and they get angry when they see someone doing it again because they think it's just trying to cash in on the nostalgia. But then when you don't do that, you're suddenly speaking the language of AAA visuals for, you know, an indie-style gameplay, and it can leave people a little confused. So if you do too much of what used to, they're going to say, I'm sick of that already. But if you do things that are too interesting, you'll just leave them befuddled, and they'll, you know, go back to playing Angry Birds or whatever. I think people still play that. So, man, this is the business side.
Yeah, well, that's been the biggest thing for us as well. Just really, you know, we started out like, we just want to make a fun game, and who cares about this business thing? And you know how it goes. It's like, we just want to do cool stuff, and business is stupid for people in suits, and blah, blah, you know. So, and then eventually you find out that there's you know, some stuff that, you know, it's maybe handy to think about before you start, and so, and that's, I mean, that's been a huge learning experience for us. It's just all these tiny little things that that maybe, and it's just, I mean, you learn so much, and that's why we wanted to keep the game short, because it's our first game. We wanted to go through this whole cycle of releasing the game and making all the mistakes that are involved with releasing your first game and having no clue how that is supposed to go. So we said, okay, we'll just keep the game cycle as short as possible, so we can do this whole thing, like the whole release thing, and just learn from it, and then sort of take all that knowledge for a second game, and sort of be able to do that better in the next game.
Here I had guessed that you'd worked on it for a long time, because it just looks and feels like a game that was worked on for a long time. How long did you work on it for?
we are currently almost a year in development time.
Ah,
And
gotcha.
we're basically, so I mean, yeah, it's not really short, but it's not really long either. So we basically wanted to make the game in 6 months, and that's, why, hello there.
Yeah, she's being cool. Yeah, I'm sorry. Continue. I didn't mean to cut you.
No, it's okay, it's okay. So we basically set out to create the game in 6 months, and we knew that it was sort of part of the whole planning, because we knew that's not gonna happen in 6 months. Like, we knew if it's your first game, you're not gonna be able. You have no clue how much extra stuff you have to do to actually finish and release a game. So we tried to keep it short, because we said, okay, we want to try to stay at least under a year. So because of that, we set out to create a game in 6 months. So because if we go for a year, it's gonna be 2 years, definitely.
Sure. So it's like that friend that you want to have them show up at 7, so you tell them to show up at 6.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Yeah.
Good thinking. Huh.
Yeah.
And were you working on other stuff at the same time, or was it Action Hank full time for that year?
So what we did was we worked on freelance stuff, like work for hire stuff, but that was before Action Hank, and that was basically to sort of gather the funds to make it. And luckily, we're still sort of, two of us are still students. I'm no longer a student, but we sort of really live, this shabby student way. We don't need much money, which is a great thing, because we don't have much money. But because of that, with a little bit of money from the work for hire, we could work for a pretty long time. So we had the finances to work for a good 6 to 8 months. So we said, okay, let's go. Let's do actioning now. And we really wanted to have this full focus on actioning. We didn't want to have other projects, because that's just gonna get in the way of each other. So we wanted to have the full focus. And then around 5 to 6 months, we were like, okay, obviously it's gonna take longer than 6 months, and our money is slowly running out, and we need to find a solution. And we don't need a lot of money. Like I said, we're a small studio, we're still students, or we live like students. So we need just a little bit. So that's when we thought, well, maybe we can do early access, because we can make just a little bit of money to complete the game, to finish the project.
Sure.
And it's also sort of less of it's more of a soft launch, basically. It's like, it's alright if you make a couple mistakes. And like I said, we had never released the game, so for us it was a good thing. Like, oh, we can sort of have some slack, like if something goes wrong, we can say, it was early access. So in the end, the launch went really well, or everything was really stable, and that's also to thank to Unity, because Unity is just a really stable platform. So it went way better than we expected. We expected to be fixing bugs non-stop for the first couple of weeks, but that was actually it went pretty well. And that's also how the reception has been mostly. Like, people were just really happy that the game was just working. It was just a functioning game. And yeah, because early access games tend to have these issues sometimes, that people feel like it's really a broken or unfinished game.
Sure.
And we said, okay, we just want to have a small game, but we want it to work. We want it to be solid and to be robust, even though there's not much content yet. And we're just gonna add content during early access, and people just, new levels. That's what people really love. So we're just like, okay, let's just keep it a small but robust game, and then expand on it during early access. And well, most people have been really, really happy about that, and that's been the only sort of complaint that we heard in the first couple of weeks, was like, it's really nice, but it's maybe a bit short. And then after a couple of weeks, we released more levels and more, and then we sort of, so that worked out pretty well for us. People have been really enjoying it, so that was scary, of course, but people enjoyed it, so that's obviously one of the most important things.
Oh, absolutely. How has that process been to keep expanding it, and when will you decide, okay, Action Hank is completely done, it's off early access, this is the full game, anything from here will be DLC or just a Christmas gift or something, but we're not going to keep building off it?
So we started in November last year, so it's almost been a year now of development. And like I said, that year was sort of the max we wanted to set out for ourselves. So we're really starting to wrap up the game now, and we want to have it done early next year. It's not like we are really done with the project. It's just like we just need to wrap it up now. It's because if we can spend another year on it, but that's not going to be, you know, it's probably not going to be profitable. We should just, you know, the game works like the way it is, and we have some cool stuff in mind. Obviously, we want to do some cool stuff for the launch and stuff. We want it to feel like an actual launch of a game, and not just like, oh, it's no longer early access. We want it to be a real proper launch. So we have some cool ideas that we still wanted to do, but we're starting to get into this mode where we're actually wrapping up the game rather than just working until infinity or something.
Sure. How does that feel to know that the end of development on this game that you've put so much time into is almost over? Is there regrets, or is there fear, or is there excitement, a mix of all of those?
It's pretty funny because actually I've never thought about that ever, actually. Like, you're the first one to ask, like, how? So I might burst crying now or something. Now, so I mean, I don't know. It's probably not gonna be done when it lies. I mean, we're also looking at maybe we want to do console port, maybe we want to do other updates. So at least I know that when the game releases, it's not gonna be completely done after that. So there's still gonna be a long way out of us. And then on the other hand, it's a really nice feeling because, you know, during the development of a game, you start out with a great idea, and then you sort of like start making it, and then you get all these loose ends in your design, like, oh, we still have to fix that, we still have to sort of come up with a nice solution for that, and sort of you don't really know where you're going, you're just sort of trying out, and then in the end you have this moment where you're like, the whole thing sort of encapsulates, like every decision is basically made and everything is put into place, or at least planning wise or in your head. You still need to make it, but it feels really good if you know, like, yeah, if you see the finish line, basically, you know, okay, these are all the things that we still need to make, and then if you put them all like this, it makes sense, and it's a complete game, and it's just a nice feeling to have that all sort of set out, planned out in your head.
Yeah, absolutely, and to have that idea be interpreted by so many people. How has it been to make something that's being experienced by so many people for the first time?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to describe that. It's just, yeah, I wouldn't know what to say. I mean, obviously, it's super cool, obviously, but I think one of the coolest things, I'll just throw in one story. Like, one of the coolest things for me is when I see really young kids playing the game, because I mean, because it's all toys, there's sort of nostalgia and sort of like, you know, it works really well for people from the 80s or from the 90s, but you know, it's toys, it's happy stuff, so kids really enjoy it as well. So when I see these really little kids playing the game when we're showcasing at an event, that's just, oh man, that's just amazing, because they get so much into the game, and then their dad is like, come on, we have to go, let's go watch other stuff, and then they're like, no, one more. That's for me, that's been one of the most rewarding things, and if you can see they're absolutely hooked to the game, you can walk up to them in the end, it's like, here's a key, you can get it for free on Steam, and then they're just like, they find that amazing, because, you know, at these shows, people just almost kill each other for a free T-shirt or a poster, or just to be able to give these people, you see that they love your game, to be able to give them a free copy of your game. That's just, that's so rewarding. That's amazing.
It's an interesting point about kids in general and how compatible the game is for them. For some reason, me being as old as I am, maybe I'm just being selfish and looking things from my own perspective, but that didn't even occur to me. But now that you mention it, of course. And every kid I know loves video games, male, female, you know, everyone under 12, all my friends' kids for the most part. But they don't like understand video game consoles. They're like, what do you even need a TV for, let alone like a thing to play video games on a TV? Don't you have a phone? And they do use a computer a little bit, but it's mostly like iPad and iPod. Those are usually kids that are young enough that people don't want them to have a phone yet, but they've got to be one of those two things. Any chance of Action Henk to come to that? It'd be tough control-wise.
Sure. Well, yeah, that's so. Okay, so in the beginning we said no, we hate the mobile market and blah blah free to play. You know the whole story, right?
Sure.
So we were, yeah. I mean, the game has sort of high quality 3D graphics, which is hard on a mobile device, and it has fast based Twitch controls, which is also hard on a mobile device.
Sure.
So it doesn't really lend itself well to a mobile device. That doesn't mean it's out of the question. Who knows? Maybe we can find a way. Who knows?
Sure.
But for now, it's not really on our radar yet. But we'll see where it goes. I mean, if I say now that it's never going to happen, then I might,
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. The I don't know if you know the guys at Choice Provisions, formerly known as Gaijin Games. They were against the phone market as well. They made a game called Bitra Presents Runner 2 Future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually they made a free version and I think a phone version, and that's a very Twitch. But they just couldn't pass up the fact that there are all these kids, this is part of their decision making anyway, who are just never going to touch a console and barely touch a computer because they're glued to their iPods and their iPads, and a bunch of kids are happy with that game now. So it might be worth it for the children. Think of the children, Roel.
For the children, yeah. No. Like I said, if we can find a proper way of doing it, anything is possible.
Sure. I'm very curious. I don't know if you're not allowed to talk about it. I'll move on really quickly. But knowing that you freelanced before, now I'm wondering, like, how many games have I played that Roel has been involved with that I didn't know? Like, was Roel working on Call of Duty and I didn't know I was?
I mean, I'm sort of like, I just graduated, right? So I'm not really like a senior or anything.
Sure.
One thing that so I basically did 2 games freelance. One of them is Crash Drive 2, which was sort of a big freelance assignment that we worked on as a team, as RageSquid. We basically got hired by a couple of other another Dutch studio. Mm-hmm. They had a game called Crash Drive 3D, which is sort of a browser-based racing stunt game. And then they wanted a sequel, but they didn't have the time themselves. So they basically just hired us to make the whole game for them. And well, I think that turned out pretty alright. I mean, I like how the game plays, and I think it looks pretty decent for especially for a mobile game.
Sure.
So that was one of the games we made, but that's just sort of a small game. You probably haven't heard of it. It's one of many mobile games.
Sure.
And then I don't know, have you played the mobile version of Terraria by any chance?
No, but I wanted to. I don't ever play anything on the phone, but I was very curious about how it turned out, and of course Terraria being a lot of fun as it is. Did you work on that too? Yeah,
so actually I worked on that, so that was really cool that I got to work on that. It was it was done by a company called Code Glue, and it's a company in Rotterdam, based in the Netherlands, and they were basically hired to do the whole mobile port. I think they do they've been doing a lot of ports of Terraria. And I was there as a programmer porting the game basically from the whole XNA engine stuff to this iPhone engine, and then all the problems that come with it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. I mean, that was pretty cool to be able to have worked on. And for my internship at school, so that wasn't freelance, but for my internship I worked on Killzone 3 from Guerrilla Games. So yeah, that was a really cool internship.
I thought you started this conversation by being like, "Oh, I'm just a student, not Call of Duty level yet. Oh, by the way, Killzone 3 though,
Okay,
PS4, yeah, whatever."
Yeah, that was okay, but that was a pretty long time ago, and I was really So I was really an intern at that point, so I was learning how it all works. But that was really cool. That was insane learning experience. So yeah, that was really cool to be part of. And I know a couple of our friends actually work at Guerrilla Games, and
cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
When I play Killzone 3, can I look for a part that you made? Is there a spark you made or something? What did you make?
Okay, so now I'm gonna ask this question, and then you're gonna say no, because I never heard anyone say yes. But so, by any chance, have you ever played a game with the PlayStation Move?
Oh sure, yeah, I played the PlayStation Move.
Have you ever? Do you own Killzone 3?
I actually don't. I played it at a friend's house a while ago.
Okay, so you can play Killzone 3 with the PlayStation Move. And that's basically what I did during my internship. Well, together with my supervisor there, obviously, I didn't do all of it, but we sort of together and some other people, we basically worked on the whole PlayStation Move implementation of the for Killzone 3. So that was really cool. It was really cool that I could work on sort of this separate little thing instead of
Sure.
just doing all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I can really point out like that's the thing that I made, and then people are always like, oh yeah, no, yeah, I don't have a PlayStation Move, or like, no, I never tried that. Oh, okay, well, yeah, whatever.
I was decent. Yeah, it sounds like it. I was not a big first-person shooter fan on PC, even though I did like mouse and keyboard controls if I was going to. Never got into dual analog shooters all that much. But when the Wii came out, I loved pointing at things and shooting at them.
Yeah?
I would buy just pointing and so when the Move came out, I was psyched. That was for me perfect for the kinds of games I want to play on there. But I'm kind of the traditional fan of shooting things, so. That's probably why you don't hear it as much. But it's awesome. Do you think you're gonna make things where you point at things and shoot things again someday?
Who knows? Maybe. Like I said, I just want to make things that feel really well, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? I'm in that sense, I would be more of a sort of a traditional developer. I'm not really looking for experimental ways or sort of like artsy style things. For me, it's
Sure.
always been just like simple and solid. So it wouldn't necessarily be my first idea, but who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, anything's
Yeah,
possible, I suppose. Especially if you end up moving over to console or to phone, where pointing and shooting at things seems to be happening quite a bit. Though, of course, it does on PC as well. Everyone wants to point and shoot at things. Maybe in a nice way. Yeah, maybe there's a fun way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? So well, that's also a thing. Like we don't really focus on a specific genre or something. So we made a couple race games. I don't know how. Somehow I end up doing vehicle physics for like 3 or 4 games, but I don't know why. Somehow we are always making race games. I don't know why, and I don't even drive a car. Like I don't have a driver's license, but I've been making vehicle physics for a long time.
Huh. Well, a lot of my favorite games are like driving games in that it's about how well you steer the character. Even if it's not a driving game, like you mentioned Super Meat Boy before, Super Meat Boy isn't just about level memorization, it's about muscle memory and really learning how to steer the physics of Meat Boy and all the other characters in the game. And you feel when in a good driving game, it's kind of the same way. You master the physics, you master the feel, so you can get a better time. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. We should talk more about some of the games that you did before Action Henk, though. Action Henk being the first one you've sold, but you've made a lot of, again, like not game jammy looking games. You've made some games that look like, a commercial product that you just did for the heck of it in 48 hours, quite a bit. You can find them on the RageSquid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Game Jam. Why did you want to do that? That's hard.
Well, okay. So I remember my first Game Jam. There was a global Game Jam, which is like a yearly Game Jam event, and yeah, that's like that's the big one. The global Game Jam, all over the world, people make games. And I remember one of the first global Game Jam was 2009, and I was there with a team of people, and we were 6 people, and I was the only programmer. And we were also doing the game because I told you back in the days I didn't know Unity, and we were taught in school basically how to make our own engine. So I was doing this whole C++ own engine, like way too much work thing at a game jam while I was the only programmer. So I didn't sleep much that weekend, but it was a lot of fun, and we made a game that we were really proud of in the end. So,
I can't remember if Global Game Jam does prizes. Was there a prize you were shooting for? Or
yeah, I think we sort of won sort of a combined sort of jury prize and audience. I don't know. They sort of had 3 winning teams, and we were one of the 3 winning teams. Let's just put it that way. But that was for the Dutch. That was for the Dutch sort of chapter of the Global Game Jam. It was not from the world, but yeah, we really loved doing game jams because at that point we were also just learning a lot about making games. So it's just this sort of, you have so much pressure and you have to make something. So you learn really fast because you have to make all these decisions. You have to go through this whole process of making a game in just 48 hours. So it's just like you don't have time to mess around. It's just like you have to make something. So that's always like, it doesn't matter. Every game jam has been a learning experience one way or the other, and we always try to sort of try to do one new thing we haven't tried before, use one new feature we haven't tried before. So yeah, we've been doing game jams for a long time, and even before we had the RageSquid crew, there was already like I was doing already game jams for years before that. So wait, pulling out my ear. So it's just been that's been a really big thing in how I learned to make games, just doing game jams all the time.
Sure, that in school. What was the name of the? You sort of won. We either won the jury or.
Yeah, so that was
exciting. What
that was
was
the Global Game Jam
Yeah,
2009. And
Which
the game
was that? Mm-hmm.
What was it called again? Cardboard Carnival. It was, I think. So it was a game about sort of like you had to defend. Oh yeah, it was two characters, and one was like, it was because you always have a theme, right, for these game jams, and the theme was something like, as long as we have each other, we will never run out of problems. It's kind of weird. So we had this idea of having like sort of two polar opposites. We had this sort of angel and this little devil, and one of them had to be in the center at all times, and you had to sort of defend the center, and there would be sort of enemies coming in, and then one of them would be like, both of them could stop the waves of enemies, and one would be sort of passive by placing walls and sort of holding them off, that kind of stuff, and then the devil would be like the aggressive, and he could do fire and that kind of stuff, and then the whole setting was cardboard, and what we did was we sort of scanned in pieces of cardboard, and we sort of drew on top of that, and it was a really, like, the art style was really nice, but that's like I said, we were with 5 artists and 1 programmer, so the game was kind of like falling apart, and we didn't even manage to get music in there. Like, I didn't know how to code it in there, so when we had to present the game, it was like, yeah, so I'm just gonna put on the Windows Media Player and just play some music in the background because we didn't get to put the music in there, but then the game looked actually pretty nice. So I think that's one of the reasons we maybe won that one. So and then from that moment on, it was just hooked, and then it's just like every year we would join, and then we would just get wrecked by Flambeer because they would have a fucking amazing concept, and then we would be like the 2nd place. And yeah.
Yeah, Flambeer. They're everyone loves them, but everybody hates them.
Yeah.
They're making everyone look bad. They keep doing it. I wonder what they're working on now, actually. I know Rami's been traveling a lot. I haven't actually.
I think they're working on Nuclear Throne right now.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Nuclear Throne has had so many milestones, and I keep forgetting it's not actually done yet when it's so close to done. They added the actual throne, like, I think a month ago. So
yeah, it's been in there for a little bit now.
Yeah, good old Flambeer. Do you know Rami and JW at all?
Yeah, have you heard of the Dutch Game Garden by any chance?
I think it sounds familiar. If anyone would have told me about it, it would have been Flambeer. What is the Dutch Game Garden?
All right. Well, so let me tell you what the Dutch Game Garden is. It's so it's basically an incubator building, and it's in Utrecht, which is in the center of Holland, and it's sort of this building with, I think it's more than 30 companies that basically all do video games one way or another. So it's just a building with a lot of video game companies, and most of them are small companies or indies or just starting companies, and it's an incubator, so it is about accelerating these companies, and so we have an office as well in the Dutch Game Garden, and other people who have an office in the Dutch Game Garden is, for example, Flambeer. They have an office there. They're basically right around the corner where we are.
Oh, cool.
Around the corner. And yeah, unfortunately, they're never in the office because Rami is all over the world. JW works from home, but basically, I mean, Flambeer is around the corner. I don't know if you know Ronimo Games, who are doing Awesome Knots.
Oh yeah, sure.
They recently moved out because they grew too big, but they were also there. And then the guys from Abbey Games I told you about. So there's a lot of sort of up and coming studios there, and there's a lot of studios that are just starting out, like us. And there's this really cool atmosphere there because, on one hand, the Dutch Game Garden tries to organize certain sessions and try to do sort of, they bring experts and they give you they do talks and that kind of stuff. But there's also just this community within the building, which is really helpful because, people just tend to help each other out, and that's sort of this, this community spirit. But But the cool thing about it is that it's basically about sort of passing on the knowledge, because so we came in the Dutch Game Garden a good year ago, maybe a year and a half, and we started on Action Henk, and we had no clue what we were doing. I mean, we knew how to make a game, okay, and that's about it. We knew how to make a game, and that's it. So we were visiting our neighbors from Abbey Games on a daily basis about, hey, how did you get in touch with Steam, and how does it work with press release and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so it's been, you ask each other around so much, and everybody's willing to share the knowledge. So that's just, yeah, so nice. All these people sharing the knowledge, and then the cool thing is that the idea is basically that you sort of pass it on when you become, when you end up in a position where you can pass on the knowledge to someone else who just started out. So it's really cool because they sort of help you out, even though you cannot really help them out. But then it's basically the sort of the unwritten rule that when you end up in a position that you can help someone else out who just started, then you sort of do that. So you get in the Dutch Game Garden, you have no clue what you're doing, and all these sort of more established companies just help you out. Just, they don't need anything in return for it, and that just feels so, it's so, you feel so grateful that all these established companies are just willing to help you out on so many things. But then how it basically goes is that the idea is that you sort of pass it on. So if we would end up in a position where we would be an established company, then we would basically help other starting companies. So that's sort of, instead of like, going back and forth, it's basically they help you and you help someone else. And that, it works really well because you have all these established companies telling you all their little tips and tricks, and just that accelerates you so fast.
Mm-hmm. I keep thinking not only about the Dutch Game Garden, but the school you went to in general. Like, I don't hear about this kind of thing happening in the United States as much. The United States has Full Sail. It's one school, so the people I know who have gone there have said it's, sort of a mixed bag in terms of, as you were saying at the top of the show, how some schools are all about like art and experimentation and self-expression, but not so much the technical side. And then you get real technical schools. I don't know of a real technical school here in the United States, and I certainly don't know about something quite as awesome as the freaking Dutch Game Garden. 30 offices, and you're all good to each other. So a lot of indie developers, a lot of developers in general are good to each other, but to have that kind of environment where you could just walk over to another developer and say, like, we don't actually know what to do, can you help us? It seems like almost a Netherlands-y kind of thing. Is Netherlands more video game culturally or economically? Is there something about that?
I don't know, because I am from the Netherlands, so I only know the Netherlands. So that's kind of, my viewpoint is a bit restricted. So, I think it's going pretty well here, and I think, Utrecht also, like the place where the Dutch Game Garden is sort of, it's the center of Holland, and it's really a hub for game development. It's basically Utrecht and Amsterdam. Those are the two big cities where most of the stuff is happening, and especially the smaller studios and the indie studios, they're mostly in Utrecht. So it's just a really big, community of people helping each other out. So yeah, naturally that's gonna give good results in the end, because if one guy has good press contacts and he gets someone over to the Dutch Game Garden, he can show them around all the other offices.
Sure.
And then you sort of everybody accelerates each other. And that's that really helps you out.
Yeah. So it sounds like the density in part, because it's not like the country is huge. There's only a couple of central hub cities where this stuff is happening, so you bump into each other a little bit more, unlike the United States, which is really spread out. But I don't know, culturally, like growing up, were video games something that people you knew aspired to be a part of, or was it something that was like frowned upon, like it's nerdy or it's not cool? Was it something people from the get-go were like, oh yeah, you could be a part of this industry and it would be something to be proud of?
Well, I guess it took some time, obviously, for everyone to sort of accept games as a profession or a medium, and still people will be like, oh, you make games, but nowadays it's been more accepted. I guess it's also because of the whole mobile gaming thing that basically everyone plays games nowadays.
Sure.
Well, I remember being the only one within my sort of whole group in like secondary school, and that really wants to go that direction. And some people were really like, "What? Why are you gonna make games?" And because I went to sort of a university, or you know, like a sort of a higher education in secondary school, so they would basically, what they would sort of expect is for you to go to a university and to do something like, you know, something really scientific and something academic, basically.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I want to make video games. And then that was more of a practical. I don't know really what the names are in the U.S.
Yeah.
Because you have college, and then you have university, and then you have all kinds of things. But it was basically, you could say that it's basically one level lower, the education level. And then people were like, "What? You did this whole thing to be able to go to university, and now you're doing something which is way easier." And then it turned out it was not easy. It was crazy. It was super hardcore. But it was just it's more sort of a practical education. If you go to the universities, it's really theoretical, and I don't see that working very well for a game development education. I don't even think we have like universities that do game development, or at least the Dutch version of a university. It's so complicated.
No,
names in different countries.
Sure.
So some people thought it was weird. Some people were like, yeah, that totally fits you. But I just really wanted to do it, so I just did it in the end. And then I don't really care what other people think about it.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be this. I don't want to be this, you know, like, oh, I don't care. But I mean, it's just I really have this passion. So, and I notice when I talk about it, and I can really, you know.
I do. I've had it too.
I can really share the passion with people.
Yeah.
So, and they usually they open up a lot more if they can see you're passionate about something. They usually can understand where you come from.
Absolutely. I have found that, at least here in the United States, the stigma is, oh, you like video games. That means you must be introverted. That must mean you don't want to connect with other people because you'd rather connect with a screen or connect with some ideas. You know, same as if you say, well, you know, I spend a lot of time reading books, even though that doesn't have quite the same stigma here. It's the same sort of message. Whereas if you're really open and vocal about how excited you are about a book, or excited you are about a video game, and you want to share that, that passion is contagious. And also to welcome somebody into your world, and to not say, oh, I just want to play video games, I'd rather not talk to you about it because I'm afraid you're going to make fun of me. To say, no, I want to share this with you because I'm not ashamed of it. Maybe you'll like it too. Of course, it depends on who you're talking to. There was one woman, I've told this story before, I think. I'll tell it to you briefly. Are you familiar with the rapper at all, by Nana Onsha? He's a rapper.
No.
He raps on the PlayStation 1. He's a little dog. He's a great dog, actually. You like him. You like dogs. Yeah, this is.
I like dogs. Yeah.
This is making sense now. She wanted to latch on to passion. She's like, "What are you passionate about?" I'm like, "Parappa the Rapper is what I'm passionate about." She's like, "Oh, I love video games. Bring that game over." When I brought it over, she was miserable, and she asked me to leave and take Parappa the Rapper with me because it wasn't sexy enough. I think she was just wanting sex. And I brought Parappa the Rapper instead. Oh, wasn't she disappointed? Geez, I wonder how she's doing today. But she's got a pickup truck and is married and has kids and stuff. That's good for her. Anyway, I'm way off track. I am curious. That's kind of weird to say. So your family and your friends, I don't know if you're dating anybody, how do they feel about the course your life has taken? Because here you are, at 24, running your own company, putting games out there, hoping they sell. If they don't sell, that's your livelihood on the line. But at the same time, that's it took to do this. How does your immediate family and friends feel about all this?
Well, so I've definitely been really lucky with a family that supports what I want to do, because I can't even imagine how hard it must be if you have to explain to your parents all the time, like, why you do video games, and they're like, yeah, but why don't you get a real job? And there must be so many people who have that, and luckily I don't have that, and luckily my parents understand it. So for that, I'm really thankful, because some people have that, so like they have to put so much effort into that, into making their sort of environment understand. And then so a lot of my friends, I know them from school, from game development school. So a lot of my friends make games themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then one other funny thing is because being in the Dutch Game Garden, being around game developers all the time, but also being around entrepreneurs or people who run their own company. Basically, if you're in the Dutch Game Garden, most of the people you meet and the people you start to know, they're the people who are running their own company, all of them. So you sort of get into this, like you forget that it's
Becomes
kind
your
of a
new
thing,
normal.
right? It
Yeah.
becomes normal. I'm just with all these people, I'm running our own companies, but then you sort of, sometimes you try to step out of it for a bit and then look on from the outside, and it's like, oh wow, that's actually pretty cool. Running your own company and just, so. I mean, it's hectic, man. It's stressful. It's crazy, and sometimes you're like, why am I even doing this? But it's fucking cool to be able to do your own thing.
Absolutely, it is. You only live once, and to be able to put your stamp on the world with something that you created, both the game and the company, and say, for better or worse, this is us. People are going to know her and what we wanted to do. I want to go to the friggin' Dutch Game Garden. I want to just be
you
there.
should, man.
Should I just go there?
Yeah.
I just go there. Just be
Why
in the
not?
garden. Yeah, have some.
Okay, so it's not really a garden. It's more of a building, but.
I'd imagine that. Yeah, but I can't help but picture it as like Final
You're always
Fantasy VIII.
welcome. You're always welcome.
Thank you so much, Roel. I appreciate that. We have a couple of questions that have come in, and I'm so curious about what happened on the show while I was gone. We'll catch up about that later. I don't know if you and Sinistar just caught up about whatever. Travis McKeithen asks, how many levels are planned for the final version of Action Hank? In Steam Workshop integration, is Steam Workshop integration something being considered for the PC version? Huh, good question.
All right, so I believe the early access version has around 30 levels at the moment, and we want to really, it's going to be at least, 50 to 60 levels. We want to at least sort of double the content that we have in there currently. And about Steam Workshop, it's one of the one of the things people have been asking us the most is like, is there going to be a level editor? Is there going to be a level editor? And they keep asking us. So we cannot confirm it yet, but we want to do it, and we're going to see if we can do it. But I can't promise anything yet. But we would love to do it. So hopefully we'll also have a level editor in there.
Sure. Yeah, it's the kind of game that appeals to people who love a procedure, a person kind of like you. You love getting into a procedure, you love having to do something quick, but you want to make it your own. You want to apply your own style to how you get through the level, which therefore I can imagine people want to apply their own styles to how they make a level too. So that would be a huge marketing bullet point, and also something to just be really awesome. Hopefully that can happen.
And actually, now that I think of it, it was one of the very first things that we thought of when we came up with the whole sort of toys aspect and the whole sort of childhood nostalgia, seeing this game from sort of the imagination of a child, and then we were like, then how cool is it? You just put blocks and you make your own levels, and I mean, having a level editor would make so much sense from this whole childhood perspective. Like you just put your blocks on the ground, you make your own tracks, and that will make so much sense. So that's why it will really fit the whole theme as well.
Sure, but being basically 3 people with some extended help, can't make promises, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so I can't promise it yet, but we're really going to try it.
How much do you want to put it on consoles, like scale from 1 to 10?
How much do we want to put it on consoles? Well, I guess, I don't know, 8, 9?
That's pretty high. That's pretty high.
Okay, we really want to put it on console. We'd love to. It's just...
Yeah. Any particular consoles more than the others, or are they pretty much all the same? With Unity, I've heard coding-wise, it's more or less the same.
Yeah, it's more or less the same. The only thing is if you have platforms that have sort of lower specs, like for example Wii U or Vita, for example, that obviously requires more work. But yeah, we would love to bring the game to console. I mean, it would be tremendous learning experience. It would be so cool to see your own game on the console. But again, we're just looking into the opportunities. So we'd love to do that.
That is something I've always, and I've actually had some sometimes unpleasant conversations with people who are very annoyed with me for having an opinion. Once in a while that happens and talk about video games.
Opinions and all that.
Yeah, exactly. For a while I was saying, well, I'm kind of worried that the PS4 and the 360, I mean the Xbox One, are so powerful that I'm expecting it's going to take even longer for games to get made. I'm expecting that games are going to cost even more money, and people return and say, oh no, it's going to be much cheaper to make Xbox One, PS4 games. I'm like, but the more detail you have, the more you have to hire people to fill that detail in with stuff that looks, worthy of looking at in a display that's nice. Whereas I'd assume less polygons, less texture detail would cost less to make. And they're like, you're absolutely wrong. Never talk again. I'm like, sorry. That's what I thought. But you've been on the inside of it. So is it a trade-off when you're working on a higher-end console? Are there some things that are cheaper and easier to do, and some things that are harder?
Okay, so I think this is a really complex thing, because I think there's so many factors that are involved in this. So it's already really hard to name like a specific thing. Sure. But for example, what I do know is that but that's from like a sort of AAA standpoint. If you want to develop your own engine, your whole own feature set, the architecture on the PlayStation 3, sort of the inside of it, was really complex. They had this really sort of system that was, it had like 8 cores or something, but they would all have this sort of a little bit of memory, but it was really fast. So it was just the whole structure of building your game engine. You had to throw it completely around. But if you could, learn to grab a hold of this whole architecture of the PlayStation 3, you could do amazing things. And that's what you've seen with the last games coming out for the PlayStation 3. Last of Us, for example. So I mean, you see, they do crazy stuff. And what I do know is that for the newer consoles, they try to have a more an easier learning curve into the architecture of the system. So that should take less time, I think. Then there's this other thing about creating higher detail. Is on one way it takes time, but on the other hand, if you are restricted, say in terms of polygons, you can only use a small amount of polygons. It is really hard to make a nice looking low poly model, and it's a lot easier to make a nice looking high poly model, because you can just put nice things everywhere. And if you have little detail, if you do a game on the, I don't know, I guess the 3DS or something, you have so much restrictions in terms of poly count that it's just really hard to make that, because you have so many all these limitations, and having freedom. So, but then again, you're expecting higher quality and more content, and teams are getting bigger and bigger. And if you look at, GTA 5, for example, this is the amount of work that went in there. If you look at that, as a game developer, you just it's just like you have no clue. It's just 1,000 people worked on that game or something for.
And they're going to think they have to top that. They're not going to say, oh yeah, we can scale back a little bit. They're going to have to take even more time and more money and more people and a bigger world, or else people are going to complain. They don't want to. But there comes a time when you're stacking cheese on. Do you like pizza?
I like pizza.
Me too. I miss pizza. I want to eat some right now. But there's only so much cheese you can put on the pizza before it doesn't taste so good anymore. I'm hoping AAA can back up on its scope a bit, because it feels like it's too much cheese on pizza every once in a while.
Yeah, I have that sometimes when I. Sometimes when I play AAA games, it's sometimes tricky, because you feel it's like this whole cinematic blockbuster experience, but then on the other hand, it feels a bit like you're just being pulled through all these cinematic explosions and through all this whole, and then you're just more sort of like going through all the content rather than playing a game. I don't know. I guess if it becomes too complex, it can be a bit overwhelming or something.
Yeah. If it's too big or too much. Yeah, too much cheese. Something to look out for.
So, I mean, I don't know. I couldn't predict what's going to happen with that whole industry. I have no clue. We'll see where it goes. They'll figure it out, right? They'll figure it out one way or another.
They have a lot of people working on it. This is true, and a lot of them are paid very well, and they want to keep their jobs, so they're not going to go in a direction. And then again, they said that in the 70s, and then the entire video game industry died for a little while. At least in the first gang, so it's hard to say. But we can hope for the best. Why not? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, and I mean, it will work out one way or another.
Yes, it will. Something will happen. Definitely not nothing will happen. Something always does.
Okay, we can be sure something. Kalesmi, maybe. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Asks, do you prefer the idea of gameplay concepts being taught or being an observation exercise or a bit of both? I believe this is in reference to the school you went through and also learning from people at the Dutch Game Garden and just learning in general. There's the show one, do one, teach one method of teaching and learning that's often talked about here in the United States. I don't know if that's talked about where you are too, where you see how something's done and then you do it yourself and then you show someone else how to do it. And then after that you hopefully have it ingrained in your head. But with video games that can be really tough because there's so many aspects to it. What kind of learning processes work the best for you? So I don't know. I think so for me personally, when I want to learn something, I just want sort of an example. So when I wanted to learn Unity, I just downloaded an example project and I just start clicking on everything and see how it's built from the ground up. I don't like going through a video tutorial, for example, because I cannot do it on my own pace. I have to wait for someone to tell me what to do, and I cannot go faster through it. Right. So there's so many ways of learning video games, but I would say that making games is one of the best ways to learn how to make games. I mean, it's something practical. Yeah, you can learn only so much about how to do it, and then you just have to do it, and then fail horribly at doing it, and then you try again, and then you fail a bit less horribly, and then you sort of build it up from there. It's just a matter of keep trying, and then being able to look at what went wrong, basically. So because if you cannot see the mistakes, then you're never gonna improve. So It's all about making mistakes, which you are gonna do, like you're only human, right? So you're gonna make mistakes. So then the trick is about trying to find the mistakes, so you don't have to make them again. And that's how I think you can become really good at something. And then obviously then in the end, if you look at my school, and we had some really cool teachers who are from the games industry, and that's been really nice as well, having people have experience who can teach you things, and that also really helps. So I think there is sort of you have to find a way of both, but specifically doing it, just start making games. That's the best way to get good at it.
Absolutely. A couple more questions came in at the last minute, which is nice. We only have a couple of minutes, but I do want to add to what you just said, because you're reminding me again of John from Roll 7, who made Ollie Ollie. We talked about skateboarding and game development and how when you skateboard, it hurts when you screw up. And you can easily think to yourself, well, I'm never going to be able to do this trick right. But something inside you drives you to keep trying. Something makes it fun even when you fail. And the same sounds like it's probably true of game development. It's painful when things don't go. But something about you and something about John drove you to keep trying even when it hurt. What do you think? I don't know. It's a tough one. Do you have an idea of what that is about you that's kept you working on it even when it hurts?
Well, I think it's a certain, being deterministic. Like, so if you would, forget about the games now, just focus about skateboarding. So if you want to learn a trick and you're going, you feel like you want to do it so badly, and and that's the cool thing about skateboarding, because it's dangerous, you might fall, so it's scary as well. So that makes it fun because it's scary, it's exciting. And then you fall and you slowly get better and you fall again, but you feel like you're slow, like you want it so badly. And then eventually you land the trick, and then you're completely euphoric because you did it, and you didn't give up. You didn't give up even though you were making mistakes, you were failing, but you were trying to learn from them, and you were so determined to actually do it that you did it in the end. And I think, yeah, that goes for also for making games. It's just, okay, so it's basically it, the reward when you complete something, be it a game or a skateboarding trick, the reward scales with the amount of effort you put into it. So the more the more you have to go through the dirt to get there, the more the more you have to fall on your face and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
When you eventually get there, it feels so great because like I didn't give up, and it's the same why people run marathons.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun.
Sure. Or play video games. It's
about determination and then not giving up even if everything is your whole body is saying like stop now.
Sure. I can't do that. I can play Super Meat Boy in a marathon, but I can't run a marathon. That's
no.
So what I take from that, sure. What I take from that, and you've put it so well, I just want to reflect it back. You channel what for a lot of people would be anxiety, like, oh, I'm going to fail, I'm never going to make it, this pessimistic energy, and you turn that into about, oh, no, I can do it, even if it hurts this time, that doesn't mean that it's going to hurt the next time, I can get better at this, and by channeling that energy into optimism, you stick through it. Brilliant! I wish more people did that. Hopefully they will. Sorry. Oh, we're almost out of time, but we'll do a couple more. We can do it. We can do this.
All right.
The Uber Dark asks, when in the process of game development do you think the promotion and marketing should start, or when do you think the promotion and marketing should start, and how much effort do you put into that compared to the game development itself? With a limited amount of people, I suppose you have to allocate resources, and something might suffer if something else is gonna grow.
Yeah. So this is a hard one. I mean, I'm just gonna say right off the bat, this is something we don't have a lot of experience in ourselves because Action Henk is the first time we had to decide this very thing.
Sure.
So, but in our experience, basically, the sooner you can start, the better, I would say. Then again, obviously, you want to have something cool to show people, so that's also kind of a thing. What I do learn, which is one of the biggest things I learned when I basically transitioned from just making games to actually trying to run a company that makes games, is when I realized how important marketing and all that kind of stuff is. Just promoting your game. As Joost van Dongen, he's the lead programmer of Ronimo Games from Awesomenots. He has this blog about game development, and he had one about marketing that I just keep quoting all the time because I think it's so true. He says basically the success of your game is 1/3 is the game, 1/3 is marketing, and 1/3 is luck. So it's like there's always luck involved, but if you make a really good game, you do really good marketing, you're probably gonna sell at least pretty well. So, but that basically says so for the part that you can actually control yourself, half of it is marketing, and it makes so much sense because you can have this awesome game, but if nobody has heard of it, nobody's gonna play it. So you have to read.
Not only is marketing is talking about it, but marketing is also saying, is this game marketable? Like if you had made Action Henk and made the characters, look unappealing and unlikable, even though you thought they were cool, nobody else would like them, then it's going to be a lot harder to market that. So it seems like it's probably somewhat connected, the marketing and the game development.
Oh yeah, definitely. It has to. I mean, it has to be in harmony because it has to make sense, right? If you want to come up with a cool marketing strategy, it has to fit the game. You have to find like a unique angle basically that hasn't been done before. So yeah, basically what I've learned is find someone, or so either someone within your team or find someone externally who can basically do marketing as a full-time job because that's at least what it's going to take. And the first month I think of development we did the marketing ourselves as well, and I was already like, oh wow, this is going to be crazy. We really need to find someone for this.
Yeah, it's much bigger than people might think. Last question. Elias Games. Hi, Elias Games. Hope you're doing well. How do you come up with ideas for games, and do you have a story that goes back to the inception of Action Henk? Yeah, sorry I didn't get to this. So the initial spark of we want to make this. How does that happen? And this is our story for Action Henk.
Yeah. So I think for Action Henk, it's the initial spark is, it's not really that interesting. It's just like I really wanted to make a game that I would enjoy playing, or that was basically how it started. Like,
so that's
okay,
what you wanted, but then the idea of it'll be it used to be muscular. If you watch the Action Henk trailer, everyone should watch it just for the comedy. And the artwork, man, the abs, the nice ab polygon detail, intense. Action Henk watching a commercial of himself, and then you see him now. He's a chubby guy in a undershirt, and a businessman runs away with his fun. At least that's how I interpreted it. Where did these ideas come from? Oh, thank you.
I'm not too sure about that because I wasn't the sort of main person involved with the whole storyline. Like I said, the main reason how this all came to be was this sort of, we had this sort of a deeper meaning. I don't want to be all like, philosophical and stuff, but sort of if you would look for a deeper meaning behind Action Henk, it would be that, character beats perfection. That's basically the whole idea behind it. And that's the whole thing with Action Henk, this nemesis, which is like, he's like the perfect guy in the suit, and it's like everything is going well, and look at me, I'm all perfect. And it's about, people trying to come across as perfect. People want others to think that they're perfect, even though nobody is. And then Action Henk is sort of the way of saying, like, having character is, even with flaws bring character, and characters interesting, and something that's perfect is not interesting at all. So
right.
That's sort of the deeper idea behind it, and that's where it also originated from, this whole like, oh, we don't want a generic action figure. No, we wanted to have an action figure that sort of looks flawed if you see him, but he has a lot of character, and that's, Action Henk, when you see him, he's a really likable guy, right? But he obviously has some issues, and you can see that, but you still love him because you see that he's just such a nice guy. Even you take him even with his flaws. So
and he seems like a real guy. He seems like an action figure based off someone you would know in real life instead of an ideal, kind of destroying the whole standard of beauty. This is a game about men being able to look however they want.
Yeah, that's
No, it's not. Sorry, I failed.
And there's going to be a couple more characters in there. I don't know if you've seen Betsy, the sort of the personal trainer of Action Henk. That's the girl who's also in the trailer, the woman. She and then there's a couple of characters that we hint to in the trailer, and there's more coming. I think there's going to be like 5 in total or something.
Awesome.
And they basically all have their flaw, right? And so you have his nemesis is obviously like, his flaw is like he's trying to be perfect, but all of the characters have their own kind of flaw, and they're just likable for their thing, So that's, we wanted to create, like, we really wanted to create characters and not just this generic puppets.
Right. Yeah, and what an excellent job you've done. Roel, thank you so much for being on the show. They can follow you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, anytime. You've got your own Twitter, though I can't find it half the time. I'm following you, but then when I try to reference you, it like doesn't pop up in my autocomplete, so apologize for that. RageSquid is at RageSquid?
Yeah, at RageSquid, yeah.
Yeah, and who are you on Twitter?
Yeah, okay, so it's going to be impossible to say my Twitter handle. I think I should come up with a better Twitter handle, because at Roel Ezendam is, nobody's going to get that. But
they can do it. AZ.
Yeah, it's RoelEzendam. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
fine. And Action Henk is on Steam Early Access now.
Yeah.
You can
Steam Early Access. We have a lot of cool stuff planned. We want to release it early next year, and we'll see what happens after that. But
and a lot of your old games are on RageSquid.com. Is that right?
Yeah, we have a lot of these Game Jam games. You can check them out, and they're usually kind of broken, or it's like, they're prototypes, so they're game jams.
But like Action Henk, you see the flaws, and it's likable.
Exactly.
Yes,
That's a
very
good
good.
way.
Thanks. I'm at TronNots on Twitter. You can watch the show later on YouTube, youtube.com/SupHolmes Show. You can also listen to it later on SupHolmes, on iTunes and Libsyn. And the website, the SupHolmes website, may be debuting relatively soon. If you're a backer, sending out backer rewards. I think I'm about 120 into 350 or so rewards, so I'm getting there, almost halfway there. Hopefully by the end of November, the very latest, they'll all be out. So thank you again for everyone for backing the show, watching the show. Roel, thank you for being you, and thanks everybody ever. Goodbye.